Logos, my favorite Bible software, has come up with an update with new features. The question is, are they any good? I've been using these features for a couple months now in the early access. So in this video, I'm going to review these new features and I'll give you my honest opinion about what I think. I've also dropped a link in the description that comes with a free extended trial. So go ahead and use that to check out Logos for yourself. Now let's dive in and see what's new with Logos. One of the things there's a lot of is just small tweaks to the visuals and how stuff is laid out. So you can see it with this home screen. Just faster ways to get involved doing stuff. I'll just pick up where I left off. So the home screen change wasn't huge, but there's a pretty significant change here to how they work. There used to be a lot of little icons and like clicks, like you would have to come over here and like open these kind of things, and just a lot of like scrolling through menus. And so they've switched to something that's a bit more like Microsoft Word, where they have these different tabs: home, search, notes, and everything's labeled with words. So it becomes a lot easier to use. I think this is a huge upgrade. I think if you're new to Logos, you're going to find it far easier to like start understanding how stuff works. There's a much smaller learning curve than there was. And I think this is laid out really well. And so this is one of the areas right here with this ribbon, whatever this is called, I don't know, that they've changed pretty dramatically that really makes it easier to use. And then a bunch of other small things like this where they've just tweaked and improved, like Factbook, for example. Oops, let me pull that up, Factbook. And I'll just move this over here so you can actually see it. And so they've changed the look and design of Factbook. It looks different. And they have, let's go with a biblical character, a biblical person. They've added, tabs to break things down. All of this streamlines the process, and I think is a good direction for them to go in their updates. Just makes Logos a lot easier to use. And as they're planning on rolling out more updates, my guess is we're going to see more stuff like this. So we're going to see a few big features like we're going to go over, but we're going to see a lot more small tweaks and improvements. And I personally really like that system. I think a lot of small improvements can sometimes be more impactful than big improvements, especially when you have a lot of features already. All right, so let's look at one of my favorite new features, the Smart Search. You can I use this sermon tool to help write my notes for this review. The Smart Search is the biggest single thing they've improved with this update. It's a new tool, and it's frankly amazing. So they've added some AI-based searching. You can do this in all search, and you can see here it's got this little icon, and this will actually search the Logos store. I have not found a lot of use for that right now. Maybe you have. If so, let me know in the comments. But for me, I like to use the Smart Search with books. So this is going to be searching my library. And you can see right now I've been searching for the tag Jonah for just resources on Jonah to kind of narrow that down. But I'm going to go to your books. This is the default position and where you might want to search. And there's so many different things you can search for. Let me see. Let me pull up my notes real quick so I can see what I searched for before. The other day I heard somebody mention that Hannah's prayer was a song. And so when I was reading it, I didn't notice it was a song. So I quickly did a smart search here. Was Hannah's prayer a song? Notice that I'm not even including apostrophe or anything. So this would not give me any results in a precise search. But look at this. We have up top a synopsis, and this is where it's going to answer the question, Hannah's prayer recorded in 1 Samuel 2:1-10 is considered a poetic hymn or psalm. And here they give you footnotes to your resources. You can also scroll down and see a bunch of results, and it just does a really great job of answering kind of questions you have, or searching in a more natural way, like you might search on Google or ChatGPT, like something like that. It is not an AI chat though, so you can't do follow-up questions. You can't kind of add as much information. They've already set this up so that it is searching your books. And this is what makes it so much more useful than ChatGPT. You actually have your sources and you're drawing it from your books that you want. And you can even kind of narrow that down if you want. So I could, for example, you could search the Bible like this. That's not something you think of as your books necessarily. But I could search, just kind of Baptist perspective, or search historical commentaries. These are collections I have set up. and you're going to get different results if you search a different collection. Here are just a few examples of the types of stuff that I searched for recently. List the books of the Bible in order. What is the difference between Davidic Psalms and those of the sons of Korah? What are the most quoted Old Testament passages? And this is something I compared with ChatGPT and got very different results. Because when I asked this question, what I was thinking in my mind was, what books of the Old Testament are quoted by New Testament authors the most? So not like kind of just in general speak or something. When I did it in ChatGPT, it just gave me like, the kind of trendy, like, popular verses that people quote. But that was not what I meant. What are the most quoted verses? I don't even know if I did that correctly. You'll notice here that this answered exactly what I was asking. So even though the question maybe was not phrased as perfectly, because it's like in this context of your Logos library, it's going to be much more in line with the type of stuff you're trying to do. And then the actual resources here, as you click on them, are going to be far more helpful. And so I just want to be super clear. I think this smart search is amazingly helpful. It does what Logos does best, offering like a very robust, in-depth search. And it shores up an area where they had a bit of a weakness in years past, and that's that Logos is just a bit complicated and difficult to use. In previous generations of Logos, you could do super powerful searches, but you kind of had to memorize a lot of like search criteria. They've improved that with Logos 10, and then here with this new era of Logos, they have offered something that is a huge step up in kind of how robust the search is, but also a huge step forward in how simple it is. This is a massive update, and honestly, probably worth subscribing just to get this, even if it didn't come with any other features. The Smart Search is that helpful. It's something that I've been using this for a few months now on the early access, and I use this all the time. And there are a lot of ways that you can use it even more powerfully. And I'm planning on sharing some of those in more specific videos just on how to use Smart Search and get the most out of it. Totally worth it. In addition to the AI search, another feature they offer is AI summaries. One way you can do that is in your search results. So if we were looking at this search right here, we could click Summarize, and it's just going to summarize, the context of that result. So this article discusses the extensive use of Old Testament quotations and allusions in the New Testament. Okay, well, that is exactly what I want to read about, right? So my question is about that, and this summary tells me I should read it, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it, pull that up here in another window, and start reading, because this is exactly what I need. So that's the way the Summarize tool works here, and then you can kind of clear it to see the quote. You can also see the page number. So if you do have the feature to look your print library, you can kind of get a summary and see if it's worth pulling the book off the shelf. The other way is if you're reading a book, you can use the Summarize tool there. So really, if you're reading anything. So let's just say I was reading this book by N.T. Wright, and I found it, I wanted to just kind of summarize it for whatever reason. Here it's under Tools. Summarize. I never used this before. This is the first time I'm looking to how to summarize a book like this. So you can click Summarize. You can summarize the entire part of the book, which is going to be quite large. You can summarize the chapter or this kind of subsection. So let's go ahead and do part 2 and see what they give us for that. And then click this button to summarize. I'm learning to do this live. I have not found a lot of reason to use summary. I've played around with it back before this update, so it's in a different place. And for me, it was not super useful. It's summarizing a gigantic section of this book, so it is taking a while. And let's see. All right. It took a lot less time than it would have taken me to read it. And here we just have a brief summary, and you can see it's quite short. So my guess is that for a section this long, the summary is not going to be that helpful. But if we go back to summarize another article, if we just hit this Galatians section, much quicker, and here it just gives us a summary of what it's saying, how it discusses the importance of resurrection in the book of Galatians, kind of obvious from the title. Okay, and so here's an idea that's going to be found in here, that the resurrection of Jesus is seen as the beginning of a new age, breaking into the present evil age. How Paul connects Jesus' death and resurrection to the inauguration of a promised new age where both Jews and Gentiles are delivered from the present evil age. So this is the kind of the key concept, and if you were to read through that, you could draw that out yourself. If this is the type of thing, then you say, okay, that is exactly what I want to like hone in on in my Bible study or in my sermon, then you'd go ahead and read it. But if it were not the area you were looking at, you would say, well, that's not really quite relevant. Then you could realize this is not a book I need to read. So that's the sort of the intended purpose, I believe, of summarizing, is that it will help you know, is this something I want to spend more time looking into, or should I move on to another resource that'll be more relevant? Then the last big feature of this update that I want to draw your attention to, also using AI, has to do with the Sermon Builder. And so let's go ahead and pull that up. It's already up. I'm in it. All right. So this is not necessarily what your sermon would look like if you are preparing it, because this is for a YouTube video. But let's go ahead and look at this new section right here. So Sermon Builder had already existed. It's not a new feature. Oops, I skipped one. But it does have a new feature being offered, and that is the Sermon Assistant. This is all AI-based, and so anytime you see this little icon right here, you're going to know it's AI. And so it has 4 options: outlines, illustrations, questions, and applications. So outlines would be used as you're kind of beginning your sermon to look at the structure. Personally, I would not use this for sermons. And the reason for this is because the outline is a huge part of how you understand the text and how you preach it. And so for me, the work of looking at a passage and saying, how am I going to structure this sermon is a fundamental thing that I do not want to skip that step. However, I might be a little loose on, let's say, a smaller Bible study, not a sermon that's quite as structured, but let's say a Wednesday night Bible study, or if I were asked to come in and speak with very short notice to fill in for somebody else, let's say teaching Sunday school on a certain passage, and I had a different amount of time to prepare. That's where I personally would use the outline, but it's pretty neat. It works quite well. You can have your passage. If you had a passage with your sermon, it would appear here naturally. But let's say it is Jonah 1, and let's say the theme is running away from God. This is all fresh. I'm just trying this right now. So it's going to pull up, start giving you, so you see they've provided a title. Every outline is going to give you this with a summary, application, teaching, big idea. If you're new to preaching, this is actually a good way to kind of look at it, because these are, believe it or not, quite good. And if they are better than your sermon outlines, my suggestion would be to learn from them as kind of starting points so that you can create outlines that are of equal quality but more relevant to what God would be having you say to your congregation. And then you have each of the individual points broken down by verse. And these are generally quite good. I have used them kind of experimentally with Wednesday night lessons and found them often to be a solid starting place. This does not preach your sermon for you. This is just giving you kind of a structure. It's very similar to like a book of outlines that you could buy. So it's a type of resource that has existed. The difference is you can kind of tweak what it's going to pull up. Next is illustrations. Why we should not run from God. All right. And is that selected? So we're selecting lighthearted and generating. And so you can kind of read through, see if these are any good for you or not. And if they are, you can just drop that in by inserting it, and it'll be right here. Again, you may want to double check those or tweak those. I've not spent a ton of time with this. It does seem like something that if it's good enough is useful, but I can't really give it a seal of approval. Questions. This is really designed to create questions from your sermon. Let's say you were preparing a youth lesson and you were having a teaching portion and then a discussion portion. This is generating questions from what you have prepared. So you first have to actually type something up. This would be much easier to illustrate with a proper sermon, but it's going to draw questions. And then lastly, applications, which is very similar to illustrations. What should we do instead of running away from God's call. And you can just kind of look through and see if these are any helpful. Again, this is an area where I probably would not use this much. I think as a pastor, you know your congregation well. And so if the outline is kind of asking, what is this text fundamentally saying and how am I going to communicate it? This is saying, how is my congregation going to apply this in their lives? That's the kind of thing that I think that I'm a bit more qualified knowing my congregation than AI. And if I'm not more qualified, then I need to work on that rather than, using tools to help me avoid that. But it could be helpful for brainstorming. I don't think I would ever just drop this in and use it as is, but it might get you kind of thinking in some different directions. It might be good for that. So generally helpful tools. None of these blow me away. This is not the kind of thing that I would upgrade for. Unlike the Smart Search, these are the kind of things that are I guess somewhat helpful, but they are not something I could live without. I don't think I would pay extra money for this feature at all. But everybody's different. Maybe for you, you look at it and say, hey, that's really going to fill out my sermon prep. It'll be perfect. This is, maybe you're teaching in a setting where you don't have a lot of time to prepare, and you need these ideas to be run by you because you don't have somebody else to talk with. Pulling that up and then having some ideas kind of flowing through your mind to think through maybe exactly what you need. Then one last feature to take a look at, and this is, let's see, what is it called? The Bible Study Builder. And I think this is a bit of a misnomer. I think it should be called the question maker or something. So let's pull that up. We'll just go here to Tools, then Bible Study Builder. This is available in premium as well. The idea that's envisioned with this tool is that you're going to have a discussion-based Bible study. So this is really about generating that discussion by creating good questions. And I love what they do with this feature, and I hope they bring this into the sermon stuff. So I have one strong compliment and kind of one critique of this tool. So Jonah 1. Oops, did I jump to 2? Jonah 1. All right, and so the way this breaks down, and this is the fundamental area right here, is this this question section. And first, it searches your books. This is what I love about the feature so much, that the first thing it does is not AI, but it uses your books. And I wish this is how the applications and the outlines and stuff worked as well in the sermons, because I would love it if in the outline section it would pull up all of the outlines that I have in commentaries or whatever on that section that I'm looking at. This would be so good if it first went to your books, or if it pulled like kind of applications or things from books you have. For example, the NIV application commentary offers a lot of application ideas, and it'd be great to pull that up instead of some of the just the random AI generated stuff. And so you can see you pull this out, and it may have different drop downs for the different sections here, but you can read through and find a question you like, and then when you click this arrow, it adds it as a block right here. So if we were to go through and find some more questions, you could just add those to the thing, and then you're going to have more questions to discuss. You can write a note for yourself here, like what the answer would be or what to do or how to introduce it. You can also add text blocks. For example, I don't know. Just so you see how this works. You can also add, in addition to headings, you can add normal, where you just write something to share. I did not do a good job there, did I? You can drag them around. And this is a okay editor, I guess. Like, it can get the job done. But the strength is over here in these questions. For example, this Exalting Jesus in Jonah book, I have this series, and I don't turn to it that often, but I think I am really impressed how it pulls out questions from it, and it makes a book that I might have ignored, makes me kind of realize the elements that are useful. And then lastly, you can generate your AI questions. And so between all of this, and look at this, what is a memorable travel experience you've had, and what did you learn from it? This is a terrible discussion like midway through the book of Jonah, but it's a great kind of icebreaker to start off. You talk about your travel experience, and then you say, and today we're studying Jonah's travel experience, and we're looking at how terrible it was for him and what he learned for it. So it could be a great thing. Here, what was Jonah's initial response to God's call, and how did that affect the events that followed? You're having people, as you've read through the text now, explain kind of the impact of it and synthesize that beginning response to the call, and then what came later and how that drove the events forward. That Jonah's rebellion is what led to him being on the ship. So this is very helpful. And my one critique of this is not how useful this tool is, because I love the questions. It's that it's in this own discrete area. Like, I really wish it was part of the sermon stuff, because I would rather do this in my sermon build and drop it in than have this one separate area here. Also, I want to keep track of my Bible studies. So I like to use the Sermon Manager to track my not just sermons on Sunday, but Wednesday night Bible studies, even YouTube videos. I track all this stuff that I'm teaching in there so I can sort through it. This is not part of that structure. And so to me, that is the biggest weakness of this. And hopefully we'll see some of this get more integrated in the future. But as it stands, this is a solid tool, well worth checking out. If you want to do discussion-based Bible study, this is a huge add, and you don't even need Pro for this. And so this is, I guess, one reason it's nice that it's not involved in the sermon thing is that if you don't have Pro, you just have Premium, you really won't be missing anything out with this tool, and it'll be perfect for what you're doing. And those are the big key features that are in this new Logos update. And as you can tell, some of those are a real game changer to me, especially the Smart Search. I think this is one of the biggest improvements to like the search functionality of Logos I could imagine. And it adds like that ease of use, which is really good. But all in all, these are some great updates, and I would highly recommend, if you're interested in a good Bible study platform, to go ahead and check Logos out. And like I said, I've got a link in the description, so go ahead and use that link to get a free extended trial. Lastly, if you have any questions about how to use Logos, about Logos features, if it's worth it, just drop those in the comment and I will get back to you and let you know. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.